Hello, 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 everyone. It is great to see everyone today. Thank you for being here once again to support not me, not Cherie, not Rick, or anyone else, but to support Daniel. It's always appreciated, and anytime we can have anyone to be able to come and join us as we uh, provide information to you regarding Daniel's case. And bringing more awareness to Daniel's case is always, always, always what our goal is. And Cherie has just joined me backstage, so I'm going to bring her on. Hello, Cherie. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon to you and everyone.
Yeah, we got a good crowd already this morning or this afternoon. Sorry, I've been busy all morning. Um, but just a quick run through of everyone who's here saying hello. Muffin Rando, thank you for being with us today and um, being here to learn more about Daniel's case. It's always appreciated. And Carolyn Hall, welcome to Carolyn. It's great to see you and have you joining us as well. And let's see, I know there was one that popped in that Spuds. Hey, Spuds, it's great to have you here. And Spuds is asking, why does it ask to become a member when I already am? It does the same thing on Rob's channel as well. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why. And let's be honest, when we're gifting memberships to others that are in the chat, um, YouTube decides. I mean, it's always been that way that YouTube decides who gets those gifted memberships, but it's getting a little bit better. But over the summer, for some reason, YouTube started gifting the memberships to anyone who was subscribed. And most of the time during the summer, until just recently, um, very rarely did somebody who was participating in the current chat get a gifted membership. So it looks like they might be easing up on that and you know giving those gifted memberships to people who are in the chat. But on an average, let's say somebody gives 10 memberships, maybe one person who's actually active in the chat gets the membership. And as you watch the memberships gifted in the chat as you go along, you're seeing those gifts completely past people who are active and going all the way down past them to assign a membership to somebody who isn't even in the chat. And I mean, any member, obviously, that we can bring to our chats or to our channel is greatly appreciated. We just hope that some of those people are actually active people who want to learn more and are here, occasionally even to participate. But we don't see that very often, so it's okay. It's whatever. It's a membership, and hopefully it's bringing people that aren't active to the channel. Once they realize they have a membership that was gifted to them, perhaps they'll start joining in and participating. But I'm not the boss of YouTube, obviously. um, I'm just realizing I don't have my headphones on, and I don't know if that's affecting my sound or not.
You sound
But
great to me.
do I? Okay.
Yep.
Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to mess with everybody for a couple minutes while I get my techno figured out. Hang on while I get my headphones worked out. Talk amongst yourselves, and I will be audible the way I want to be audible in just a couple minutes or less. And it rarely ever puts me connected properly the way I like it. So I don't, a couple of times I've gotten lucky, but not today. So we're going to keep trying. Um, if everyone can hear me, I am going to go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about um, what we're going to be presenting to you today. Um, let's see, keeping my fingers crossed. Yay, it worked. Okay. Um, Cherie, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, so far you're nice and loud and clear and even. It's not
I'm pretty
quiet.
loud all the time.
Well,
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, it's good.
But I know what you mean. Okay. All right. Now that I'm all connected, I knew something was missing and it was my headphones. So I'm going to finish saying hello to everyone in the chat. Just Dawn, welcome. It's great to see you. And you know what? Like I told Carolyn, uh, a few minutes or some time is better than none at all. So we just appreciate you being here and participating for as long as you can. Thank you, Just Dawn. And little Barb, it's so great to see you. You know what? You are a regular. I've been seeing you every week for quite some time, and I'm so happy that you're still involved and interested in what's going on in Daniel's case. So thank you so much. Um, and let's see, did I miss anybody else that's recently popped in? Oh, there we go. Well, we have Cherie saying hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for doing that, Cherie. I appreciate it. And uh, more here. More here is also with us, joining in, and I appreciate you so much for joining. And I know more here doesn't know very much at all. Um, Sorry, I have a really dry mouth today about Daniel's case. So the more you come and listen, even though it's out of whack for you, I'm sure, hopefully it'll continue to spark your interest in Daniel's case and you'll want to be here all the time. That's my goal. So thank you so much for being here and participating. And Jazznaz, hey Jazznaz, welcome and thank you for always being here and loyally reminding everybody in the chat to like the video and to subscribe. That's really appreciated very much. So thank you for being here, and we appreciate your support. Okay, so what you do great. You try and you do very well. So it's greatly appreciated. Um, so today, what we're going to do is, as we begin to try to work on starting over from the beginning, um, that's a process that I want to make sure we're taking time and care to make sure we're, appropriately and um, uh, I can't think of the word I want to use with facts. We want to have all those things in place to begin this anew for everyone who's not familiar. So as we do that, I am just kind of jumping around a little bit, but something that's always really interesting or seems to be really interesting is the DNA in Daniel's case. Now, the case is presented to, I mean, initially in Oklahoma, it was presented that there was DNA evidence that definitely uh, inculpated Daniel in these horrible accusations made against him. Uh, but the more Sheree and I learned, the more we thought, well, I don't know. Doesn't really seem like there is that much evidence as far as the DNA. And we've mentioned several times the presentation that's in my channel, um, in all the videos that we've done, over 200 now, which is pretty amazing to me. Um, uh, why don't you get harassed to join? You can't even find a place to join. I have to. Oh, all right. Yeah, I have. You know what? When it comes to using your phones or tablets, I have no idea how that works because I never use my phone. I rarely, if ever, watch a live stream on my phone. So I'm really sorry. I don't know.
I
Um,
do. I have an Android and it just says join, but I've heard that with iPhones it's different. So I don't know about that because I never had an iPhone.
that's because we're soul sisters. We're soul twin sisters. Sorry, I'm not an Apple fan. Yeah, I'm hooked, little Barb. We're not. We can't stop. We're just like like a freight train trying to make people aware of Daniel's case. So yes, from way back, definitely way back to 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So we will never stop. I don't know, just on. You should be able to just to click the join button next to where it says subscribe and join that way. But I don't know on a phone how that works. So I'm really sorry. Um, I would imagine we could possibly find a link that we could drop in the chat. Actually, I know a lot of other YouTubers, Rob, for example, who actually has the link pinned in his chat. So I'll try to work on that and see if I can figure out how that works. Um, but I appreciate you asking. That's really awesome. Uh, um, and perhaps there will be some go to the computer. I'm sorry. um, so anyway, I'll work on that and see if I can get it. And there's a possibility there could be some gifted memberships today. Um, so even though people participating in the chat don't always often get a membership, perhaps today will be a good day for you. I don't know. Um, Really quick though, before I go on, Rick will not be joining us today. He is under the weather, and he won't be able to join us. But just if you pray, just offer a little prayer for Rick's quick recovery. I'm certain he will really appreciate it. So anyway, I just thought, I feel like there's a lot of talk about all this DNA in Daniel's case, and there just really wasn't that much DNA in Daniel's case. Um, so what I did today was I put together, well, I didn't really put it together. Um, I thought you got you have a free chat. Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that with us more here. Been a member for a month. So thank you for your support and for being a member for a month. That's pretty awesome. So I just thought, there was some pretty important um, factual, well, some of us believe it's factual. The people who wrote this amicus brief certainly feel like it was factual, based on their experience and their expertise. So, what I did today is I just kind of first thing I just thought I'd do before we actually begin a new series to introduce Daniel's case. I just thought I don't know if everyone has or anyone in the chat is has ever watched Daniel in the Den parts 1 and 2. I know we've linked it several times. I believe the link to that is actually in the description. But I don't know. I mean, I know, when you go away from listening to a live stream and you think, oh, yeah, I'm going to go back and watch whatever it was that, we recommend or whatever's in the description. Myself, I don't always get the chance. Like, I'm really interested in the topic that's being discussed, and then I really do want to go and listen to or whatever read whatever it is, but I rarely ever do, and I'm just being honest. So not because I don't want to, but because I get sidetracked and get busy and I forget is honestly the truth. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to play um, the whole episode because it's over an hour long, and I have another thing that I do want to show you incomplete. So I'm going to just kind of play the introduction of Michelle Malkin's Daniel in the Den series. Um, and just to give you an idea from who she gives a really good idea about who Daniel is, who his family is, and besides the garbage that we've all been inundated with from the state of Oklahoma. So I'm going to do that. I'm not gonna, like I said, not play the whole thing. I don't think. I mean, I've played parts of Michelle Malkin's and Brian Bates. I played Brian Bates podcasts in full and never gotten a copyright strike. I've never had a copyright strike from Michelle Malkin. Um, I possibly because they're just as interested as we are in getting this information out, and if we're sharing it, perhaps they feel like it's okay to share their work. So here is the beginning of the first part of Daniel in the Den by Michelle Malkin, and it's good stuff.
Chances are you've heard of convicted serial rapist Daniel Holtzclaw, the former Oklahoma City police officer. The case made national headlines and became a cause celeb for Black Lives Matter in the social justice crowd as a symbol of, quote, 400 years of racial and sexual violence against.
So I just want to make sure, can everyone hear that? Cherie, can you hear it okay?
Yep. Sound is
Okay.
great.
Okay. Oh my goodness. And before I go, let's just do this really quick. Um, More here, gifted 10 memberships. You are a doll. And it looks like Jaznaz. Jaznaz says he can hear, but it looks like he also received one of these gifted memberships. So thank you so much. More here. That is very, very generous and kind of you. And congratulations, Jaznaz. Okay, here we go. Maybe. Okay.
Black women. Members of Black Lives Matter and similar groups cheered when he was sentenced to 263 years behind bars. But is the case really so black and white? We're here in Oklahoma City asking the bombshell questions nobody else in the media dared to. What if he didn't do it? Did the DNA evidence really show what prosecutors accused Holtzclaw of doing? Why did the jury throw out half the charges? Why are accusers who describe the tall, dark-haired, half-Japanese cop as a, quote, short black man or blonde now part of high-dollar civil suits against him? Forget everything you thought you knew about this case, because it might not be true at all.
Next on Michelle Malkin Investigates. Michelle Malkin Investigates. Now, here's Michelle Malkin.
Welcome to Michelle Malkin Investigates, where we dig deeper, past the headlines and sound bites in pursuit of one narrative, the truth. This edition is the beginning of an ongoing series on CRTV about an idealistic young man, raised with small-town values, a strong Christian from a multiracial family of cops dedicated to law and order, who was shockingly railroaded by his own colleagues, by the media, and by the police-hating social justice mob. I have now been to Oklahoma 3 times and personally spent dozens of hours meeting the key players, hearing from Daniel Holtzclaw's family and friends, and poring over the evidence. After carefully interviewing the lead detectives, scrutinizing the accuser's convoluted stories, and after talking to Daniel directly, I can tell you this: justice was not served. Like the biblical Daniel, Officer Daniel Holtzclaw was thrown into a lion's den, his reputation mauled, his freedom stripped. This, despite the prosecution's failure to produce a single witness or piece of direct forensic evidence tying Daniel to 17 alleged crime scenes involving 13 accusers and 36 crimes. Is he innocent? I want you to make your own fully informed conclusions, and so does Daniel.
I want the world to take notice of my case. I want the world to read in detail about my case, and I believe the judicial system failed me And so I believe when the facts are finally presented and people can actually sit back and read and go into detail about my case, they understand what truly a misjustice has occurred.
You'll hear much more from Daniel later in our special in-depth interview. I'll also introduce you to Brian Bates, an unlikely ally and citizen watchdog on Daniel's defense team who has worked tirelessly to debunk the tales of the accusers who helped put Daniel behind bars.
They lied on the stand, they lied to the jury, they're involved in civil lawsuits where they may collect millions. This is an injustice, and the public doesn't want to be bothered with it.
But this story isn't just about Daniel. It's a chilling warning for the rest of America, as you'll hear from Daniel's sister, Jenny.
I want everyone to be aware that this can happen to their loved ones. It can happen to their son. It can happen to their daughter. I mean, you never know what someone's going to be falsely accused of.
As Daniel's family marks the one-year anniversary of his conviction, December 10, which is also his 30th birthday, his public defender is preparing a high-stakes appeal. In late September, Daniel filed for an extension, which included bombshell information. Limited DNA tests on Daniel's uniform found an accuser's skin cells. But what you probably didn't know is it also found DNA from an unknown male. An unknown male? That certainly doesn't fit his supposed victim profile. It's a pretty significant fact that was lost on police, Daniel's original defense team, and prosecutors. Not only that, but prosecutors claimed that the accuser's DNA came from vaginal fluid. But that contradicts their own DNA expert. And for all we know, it could have transferred from a simple handshake. We'll dive into all those details and more that the rest of the media has whitewashed. But first, let's get to know more about the real Daniel Holtzclaw from the people who know him best. Our story begins in the plains of Middle America, nestled between Texas, Kansas, and Arkansas. Oklahoma's economy depends largely on oil. The Sooner State is decidedly Republican, pro-American, and boy do they love their football. That's what made Daniel a household name and star in his small town. But before we get there, let's go back to where it all began. An unlikely love affair between an American Air Force security officer stationed in Japan and a stunning local policewoman.
It is nice weather, isn't it? I went out and said, konnichiwa, and she says, hi, how are you? And I said, oh, she speaks English. So, yeah, we hit it off, started talking about the difference in the Japanese police and American police. And, you know, one thing led to another, and later on I got the nerve to call her and ask her out on a date.
And the rest was history.
35 years later, we're still here.
Eric and Kumiko had their first daughter, Julie, in Japan, followed by Jennifer in California. But the family didn't stop there.
When we moved to Guam, Eric and we are so happy to have a boy.
That boy was Daniel, big from the moment he popped out, and a bundle of energy from day one.
How old are the kids here?
Oh my gosh, Kumiko, what are the ages here?
About 2, and Jenny maybe 3.
Big sister Jenny was so close in age, they played sports together.
On the basketball team and soccer, it's they had some good times.
Who was
together.
better at soccer, you or Daniel?
Daniel.
Yeah.
He was for sure the athletic one.
Jenny says her little brother was large in stature as a kid, but also had a big heart.
I would say that, you know, personality-wise, he's always been loving, very caring, very nurturing, you know, to both his family members, to people that he cares about, he loves, you know, people that he's concerned about. That's just his personality.
On the football field, Daniel led by example.
He led the team by the way he played. He wasn't a real outspoken leader. He was kind of a quiet guy, but he let his actions and his play speak, and he was a fierce competitor.
Former Enid High School coach Tom Cobble remembers his standout star.
We got in the playoffs and played for a state championship, and he was the leader of that, so people in town were crazy over the team and over Daniel.
Daniel's proud dad, Eric, was the biggest cheerleader of them all.
You sat in these stands many times watching your son playing on the field. Tell me more about that.
I was probably the most avid fan in the stands as far as being vocal. I mean, I'd go to those games, and by the end of the game, I wouldn't have a voice left. I was yelling and rooting for the team and him all the time.
It was a happy time for you, and it must have been some of the best memories he's had here in Enid.
Yes, it was both ways, not only for him, but for me. The great memories of watching him play.
Daniel grew up in the spotlight in his small town of Enid, Oklahoma, population 52,000. But his sister Jenny says he always stayed humble and worked hard for everything.
We both got jobs at McDonald's starting off. I think we were about 14, 15 is legal age that we were able to start working, so our parents never spoiled us.
It sounds like growing up in flyover country that you really embraced sort of, traditional values, hometown values. And when he went off to college, he took those with him, and you too.
Yeah, nothing was ever given to us.
Thanks to his hard work and focus, Daniel earned a scholarship as a Division I linebacker at Eastern Michigan University. Sports journalist Dave Ruthenberg says right away Daniel's intensity set him apart, with 4 interceptions to start his record-setting college career.
That first year, he registered over 100 tackles and earned freshman All-American, which, again, was quite an accomplishment to come from a Division I school that's a little on the small side.
Ruthenberg got to know him personally, too, writing about the Oklahoma boy in Michigan, and eventually for Daniel's hometown paper in Enid.
I knew he wanted to play in the NFL. That was his dream. So actually, my first story when I got back here was sitting with the family on an NFL draft day and kind of doing an hour-by-hour story on draft day.
Those agonizing rounds came and went. Despite his standout play, Daniel's name was never called.
We really thought he was going to make it in the NFL, and it just didn't happen.
A disappointment like that could set some people back for life. It could be debilitating to come back and bounce back. How did he bounce back?
Well, it was rough on him because that's what his number one dream was. And he just had to, understand that God gives you your cards that are laid out and to make the best of them. And he did.
Daniel always had a second dream, to follow in his parents' footsteps.
And he says, I got my degree in criminal justice. I see my dad doing a very honorable career, and that's something I'd like to do, and that's what he chose to do after that.
As the son of 2 police officers, it almost seemed like it was in his blood. Did he embrace the ethos of law enforcement?
I think so, and he felt integrity is important. His word meant a lot. He had a passion for it. He enjoyed making a difference.
That was what he dedicated his life to at a young age.
He did, and he risked his life every day down there.
Daniel joined the Oklahoma City Police Department in 2011. In his 3 years on the force, he patrolled the meanest streets, chasing down the bad guys just like he would on the football field. And yes, he ruffled feathers. Daniel was investigated on 19 use of force incidents over that time, but cleared of every single one.
A lot of the media coverage talks about him being a quote-unquote aggressive cop. What's your response to that?
I don't think that's accurate at all. He wasn't afraid to get in the mix. He would do his job. You got to remember, he was in a very high crime area, a lot of bad people, a lot of criminals that he had to deal with.
He served a brief stint in the high-profile gang unit before being assigned to the Northeast.
Let me tell you a little bit about Northeast Oklahoma City. It's one of the toughest neighborhoods, rife with drugs, gangs, and prostitutes. This section of town lies directly in the shadow of the state capitol. And it's a place where a young man, sworn to protect and to serve, became a victim, a sacrificial lamb of the very system he had dedicated his life to.
The Northeast is a predominantly black neighborhood and one of the poorest in the city.
Race relations in Oklahoma City is tense. Oklahoma native and accusers advocate Grace Franklin echoes the Black Lives Matter movement's blanket criticism of law enforcement officers and paints a bleak picture of cops on the beat.
The police do not see us as individuals. They see us as statistics. They see us as assailants, suspects. That's a problem when you're policing a community.
But here's the other side of the story. Oklahoma City has been one of the most gang-infested cities in America, behind Chicago, Los Angeles, Detroit, and Camden. Violent Northeast street thugs and cartels on Daniel's beat flooded the neighborhood with drugs. Prostitution and human trafficking have also plagued the streets. But Daniel was ready for it. Coming from a multicultural family that traveled the world, Daniel was exposed to many races and cultures and did not discriminate based on skin color.
He has always hung out with all different races. His best friend was African American as well, so it was never a race issue. I've never heard him say the N-word before. I've never heard him ever speak of that race in a negative light.
At 27, Daniel was carving out a promising career in law enforcement. His mission was to serve and protect. He had a girlfriend who shared his love of physical fitness. He went to church and remained close to his family. Life was good.
Good night, baby.
But in the summer of 2014, a late-night traffic stop would change everything, and Daniel had no idea what was about to hit him.
While Daniel occupied himself with work, family, and friends, a powder keg of racial strife and anti-police fury was about to explode. Summer 2014 was the season of Ferguson, Missouri, where 18-year-old alleged thief Michael Brown was shot and killed by police officer Darren Wilson. The Black Lives Matter movement seized on the incident, and Hands Up, Don't Shoot was born. Despite being debunked by the Justice Department, the myth still won't die. Riots erupted across the country filled with chants of blank the police. In this poisoned climate of social justice and scapegoating, fingers were about to point at an unsuspecting Daniel Holtzclaw, putting political pressure on the police chief and prosecutors to calm a racially charged mob.
Oklahoma City's skyline and population have grown dramatically over the past 20 years, and with it, the crime rate. Yet law enforcement numbers have barely budged. Instead, officers work 12-hour shifts and more solo patrols. On June 18, 2014, Daniel was just finishing up one of those solo patrols, leaving the Spring Lake station at 2 a.m. He turned off his patrol car's computer and GPS, which was a policy violation. But for Daniel, it had become a daily bad habit for which he had never once been admonished or disciplined. Across town, a 57-year-old woman was also driving home in a red car with dark-tinted windows, even though her driver's license had been suspended 3 decades prior. She says between midnight and 2 a.m., she played games with friends, took a nap, and was driving home so her fiancé could get to work. Daniel pulled Janie Liggins over here after she swerved, just west of a busy intersection. Patrol cars in Oklahoma City don't have dash cams, and officers don't have body cams. But one nearby building had 32 and 24-hour security overlooking where the supposed sexual assault happened. Here's surveillance video from one of those cameras. Unfortunately, it's too dark and far away to confirm anything other than what we already know. He pulled her over, and several cars drove by. In the 15-minute stop, Daniel says he found a bottle of hydrocodone in her purse, but let her go home without calling it in. Liggins made a U-turn, the opposite direction from where she was initially heading. So what exactly happened between Officer Holtzclaw and Janie Liggins? Liggins' story would become a national narrative, a symbol of racism and police abuse.
I was out there alone and helpless, didn't know what to do. And in my mind, all I could think that he was going to shoot me. He was going to kill me.
Her story would kick off a police investigation turned fishing expedition that dredged up more than a dozen accusers.
After I talked to Janie, I was like, something happened to Janie.
Now retired, Detective Kim Davis was with the Oklahoma City Police Department for nearly 3 decades. She says she had a gut feeling about what would become the biggest case of her career.
She said, if you picture it, he's got his penis in her mouth and his gun's right there. All she can see is his gun. And she asked him, "Are you going to kill me?"
Liggins says Daniel ordered her to put her hands on his car, pat searched her, ordered her to lift up her shirt, and demanded she pull down her pants, claiming he forced her to perform oral sex on him for about 10 seconds.
What was different about her?
Her demeanor, hysterical at times, bawling at times. She had no motive at all to make this up.
According to the court record, Liggins admitted to taking a sleep-inducing pain pill and initially denied smoking marijuana, but then said she, quote, hit it once. But she also told Davis she had actually smoked 2 marijuana joints. She later denied that too. Davis interviewed Liggins at the hospital and said she was incredibly upset. We would show you the interview, but neither video nor audio exist.
We don't record victim interviews except involving police officers. We never have recorded victim interviews.
Okay, but this one involved a police officer.
It did, but I had no recording, I had no equipment to record it, and it didn't even cross my mind to record it. We're in the middle of the hospital, and it's not something we do. We don't take a recorder to the hospital and do interviews.
You don't use your phones for interviews?
No. I wouldn't even know how to record on my phone if I did.
You wouldn't?
No, I have no idea.
The veteran detective was not technologically advanced enough to record an interview on her personal phone and says they aren't allowed to either.
You don't carry work phones with you that you
We're
could
not
use?
provided with work phones.
Still, she and fellow sex crimes detective Rocky Gregory managed to tape 9 additional accusers.
If you don't know, you don't know. And tell me, I don't remember. It's okay not to remember.
But Liggins, the linchpin for the entire case, never gave a recorded statement. Liggins did, however, take something called a SANE test with a sexual assault nurse examiner.
What were the results of the SANE test with regard to Jamie Liggins?
There was no DNA in her mouth, but she said that he did not ejaculate.
She also said at one point her hands were on the hood?
On the hood, yes.
And what were the results of that?
They didn't get fingerprints.
Why do you think that is?
Because hundreds of people touched the cars, the weather, you got to keep in mind, Holtzclaw's car was a pigsty. It was absolutely nasty. And a lot of times, like when we go into a house for a burglary, and it's just nasty, you never get results from that.
Yes, Daniel's car had trash inside, but we're talking about the outside. Police tested his vehicle all over for DNA and prints.
The fingerprint tests came back negative on the car, and the SANE test came back negative for DNA in her mouth.
Correct.
You still believed her story at that point?
I did.
No forensic evidence supported Liggins' account, and her stories kept changing, casting increasing doubt on her reliability and credibility. First, she describes Daniel as 35 to 45 years old. He's 27. She claims he's 5'7 to 5'9", 225 pounds with a thick build. He's actually 6'2", very muscular. She says his skin isn't smooth, but Daniel has clear skin. And here's the kicker. In her eyes, he's blonde. Nope, dark hair. Liggins said she pulled into a parking lot after Daniel let her go before turning around. That's not what the video showed. She testified that Daniel unzipped his pants in an instant and pulled out his penis through the fly of his pants. But Daniel wears tight compression underwear without an opening at the crotch. His bulletproof vest hung below his groin, and his uniform shirt was secured to his socks to keep it taut. The scenario Liggins described is highly unlikely, to put it mildly. Nevertheless, Davis and her partner, Rocky Gregory, were certain when they began a 2-hour interrogation with Daniel that he was guilty.
We've both investigated officers in the past, so it's a different dynamic. They kind of know a lot of the tricks of the trade that we do. They've watched plenty of our interviews when they bring other suspects down that they've arrested.
But before you started the interview, did you have a sense that he did the things that Jamie Liggins accused him of doing?
Before we started the interview, I felt like that what Janie told me was the truth, yes.
Daniel didn't ask for a lawyer. He allowed investigators to collect his DNA and conduct any search they wanted. And speaking of searches, he told a far different tale than Liggins.
Did your hands go on her at all?
I backhanded her on as far as the side.
Where on her body? Tell me. You
Her
backhanded
waist, and the back portion. I didn't touch her butt or anything, but the back portion of the waist. And then she lifted it up like right here, and there's nothing.
Did she lift it up like this?
No.
So she never, like, went, ooh, nothing,
No.
exposed her breasts or anything like that?
She asked me if I was like, no, it's okay.
She asked you,
If you want to search me, I'm like, no, it's okay.
so she never, like, put her hands on the car and you...
No.
Okay.
Over the course of a 2-hour interview conducted roughly 12 hours after the traffic stop, Daniel is clear, calm, and answers the questions directly, never getting rattled, even when the detectives mention they have video.
On the video, are we going to see her boobies?
Shouldn't see her boobs. I didn't see her boobs.
Okay. Are we going to see her pull her pants down?
I didn't see her pull her pants down.
Okay. Are we going to see your penis out?
Nope.
Are we going to see your penis go in her mouth?
No.
Are we going to get any DNA to that?
No.
The video the detectives mention is the dark, far-off surveillance footage we showed you. Remember, all it confirmed was that a traffic stop took place. But Detective Gregory suggested otherwise to Daniel.
And we can watch a whole lot of actions being performed while you were there. Now, is there any reason at all, why your penis would be out?
No.
Detective Gregory continued to press him.
These videos ain't helping.
But Daniel did not waver, and when asked about DNA, he welcomed testing.
Are we going to get something from the SANE exam?
Go with the SANE exam.
Do you understand that you don't have to full-blown ejaculate to get something out of the SANE exam?
Right.
We can get skin cells, we can get pre-ejaculate, we can do all that and still get DNA.
Right.
And did your penis go in her mouth?
No, it did not.
As you know, the SANE exam results came up empty, supporting Daniel's story, not Janie Liggins. After watching the entire 2-hour interrogation, I can tell you it sure seems to me that Daniel had no idea what he was accused of doing. He told detectives he wanted every test to be conducted to show he had nothing to hide.
Now I'm just feeling, oh my God, bless. I want DNA, I want everything, I want to get it done.
Based on a single 2-hour interview, the detectives diagnosed Daniel as a monster.
What are some of the adjectives that you'd use to describe Daniel Holtzclaw?
Narcissist.
Psychopath.
Evil.
But Sister Jenny tells me Daniel's always direct and unflappable, and when the
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Whoops. What is happening? There we are. We're going to stop that there. I teased you a little bit longer than I actually wanted to, but that just kind of sets up what we're going to fully watch here in just a couple minutes. So I want to show you, and we're not going to go through all of this because it's a lot, and it's a lot of information. So I wanted to show you that there was, this is a report on scientific issues in the case of Oklahoma v. Daniel K. Holtzclaw by an international panel of forensic experts. The panel consisted of Peter Gill, PhD, Jane Goodman Delonte, PhD, Juris Doctorate, JD, Susanna Ryan, MS, Moses S. Scanfield, PhD, George Shiro, MS, and Brent E. Turvey, PhD. And this was an amicus brief that they filed for use in the appeal, in Daniel's appeal, for when he filed for his appeal. To my recollection, this was a couple of years later, in 2017, July 15th, to my recollection, and you guys can get this document if you're in my Discord. You can get it in the Discord. Um, I don't know if I can link a document in the chat or in the description. If I can, I will. But you can get this and uh, read it for yourself. It's about 60-ish pages, counting the table of contents. But I just want to read this first part, this first discussion that they presented. The DNA evidence from the fly of Mr. Holtzclaw's uniform pants was highly prejudicial, but had little probative value because it was consistent with non-intimate DNA transfer and crucial accepted forensic science steps were omitted during evidence collection and testing. So this goes through several pages, and they're very thorough. The six of these renowned professionals, very thorough and very concise and very detailed with the information that they shared in this amicus brief to be used and read during his appeal. So they discuss how it was how the quote unquote DNA was used against Daniel, and that the way all of the DNA evidence testing was done, was collected, etc. That based on these six people, they believed he deserved a new trial. And then they cite all these different cases and different people who who have books and magazine, journal pages, papers, and those kinds of things are who they use to to back up their opinions, I guess, is how you would say. So the International Panel of Forensic Experts is composed of 6 forensic scientists and academics whose fields of study include forensic science, criminology, and psychology. They are experienced with proper use of the scientific method and the analysis of forensic DNA and serology evidence. They include members of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences who have provided expert forensic science testimony in court and have authored articles and texts about forensic evidence. That's what I was trying to say. Because of their work as scientists and their interest in the criminal justice system, the panel members are concerned about the improper use of forensic evidence that causes a miscarriage of justice. As the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology stated, quote, "It has become increasingly clear in recent years that lack of rigor in the assessment of the scientific validity of forensic evidence is not just a hypothetical problem, but a real significant weakness in the judicial system," end quote. And it goes on from there. And then it's thus, quote, "It is the proper province of the scientific community to provide guidance concerning scientific standards for scientific validity," end quote. To that end, the panel offers this report. In the view of the panel, DNA evidence was misused at Mr. Holtzclaw's trial, at which he was convicted. Miscarriages of justice based on misleading DNA evidence are fundamentally unfair and harmful to the entire judicial system. Panel members with this report offer their views on the ways in which that misuse occurred, such that the miscarriage of justice can be corrected. And then it lists all of the different experts and what their how they're credentialed, what their experience is, and all those things. But I'm not going to go through all that. We're going to hear, though, this that I'm going to play for you now is It's lengthy, but I'm telling you, the information in it, I think, will maybe hopefully fascinate you, make you question what you may or may not know about the evidence in Daniel's case. I know for me, the first time I was hearing about this, it was shocking. It was just shocking to me. So I'm going to play this for you guys, and this is just three different. One of them is going to be Brent Turvey and Susanna Ryan, who both contributed to the amicus brief. Which, by the way, Cherie, do you want to explain what was done or not done with the amicus brief for the OCCA, Oklahoma Criminal Court of Criminals?
I don't remember every detail. I just remember that they submitted it. Daniel had already, if I remember correctly, Daniel had already submitted his appeal brief, but there wasn't an opinion yet. And then the scientists submitted this kind of as an amicus to help brief to help explain the science, to make it clear to the judges what the DNA really meant. And excuse me. So, but if I remember correctly, the judges at the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals wouldn't look at it or consider it. Is that what your memory is?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Everything you said. I just can't say it as organized and as well. So yes, Cherie, exactly what Cherie said. The thing that sticks out to me, I mean, hopefully you guys will get this document and read it. It is long, but it's really not that long. For me, reading through it was like fascinating because I'm just really interested in that stuff, even though I have no background in it or knowledge. It was just very interesting. But the fact that the OCCA refused to even look at it, to read it or consider it, is just really, really frustrating. And to me, just another form of what I believe is corruption. That's just me. But Cherie put the Discord link in the channel. So, and I think she's even indicated the room that you will find the document in. So, if you're not a member of the Discord, please, jump in and find the documents. There's also a lot of other documents in there. His appeal, motion for his appeal, and just a lot of information in there, documents that you can find, download, and read for yourself. So if you're into that, please take advantage of it. But what I want to do is this is also a Michelle Malkin production. I'm going to play for you. So far, we haven't been stopped, so I think we're probably okay. But I'm going to play for you this particular episode that Michelle Malkin did regarding basically just the DNA and the evidence, and the three scientists, Brent Turvey, Susanna Ryan, and Dr. Crane. Dr. Crane. But you'll see that they'll be labeled here. So here we go.
In 3, 2, 1.
On the road and across the country, it's been another non-stop, action-packed journey for our crew here at Michelle Malkin Investigates.
Pause. Look at that.
In Season 2, we reported on stories that matter and Americans who are making a difference. We set sail from fishing communities in the Northeast.
7. That not enough?
You're higher.
Yeah. Took to the air across the border of Arizona and Mexico.
Our challenges are huge here.
and headed to the West Coast, where we continue pushing for the truth and digging into the DNA science in the case of Daniel Holtzclaw, the former Oklahoma City cop behind bars for alleged sex crimes.
There were problems with the testimony and with the testing, and a new trial should be issued.
A half dozen experts worldwide are dissecting the DNA flaws and investigative bias.
The report's not just about DNA. Police officers combing through the records to find victims, calling them up, telling them that they have a person who's been accused of multiple crimes. That is perhaps one of the most biased ways of approaching criminal investigation that I've ever seen.
Now, after our breakthrough series, the facts about the Holtzclaw case are catching fire, spreading to law enforcement officers in his home state of Oklahoma.
I'm a police officer. I saw Michelle Malkin Investigates video, Daniel in the Den. After watching that video, I believe he's innocent.
Daniel is an innocent man. I will fight for Daniel. He's now my brother.
A new brotherhood bonded in a fight for truth.
There's more than just me and Ray and others, and Daniel, who have been wrongfully convicted. There's others out there.
On this episode, you'll hear much more from this growing team of advocates and independents as we continue our groundbreaking coverage of what could be Oklahoma's most high-profile wrongful conviction. We'll also update you on the case of the cross-country jihadist, a story we brought you in Season 1. A viewer who knew him personally speaks to us for the first time. All this and more in this special edition of Michelle Malkin Investigates.
Michelle Malkin Investigates. Now, here's Michelle Malkin.
The tide has turned. And that's what the mission of our investigative journalism for CRTV is all about. Since the launch of MMI in December 2016, with our signature series, Daniel in the Den, forensic experts and criminal justice heavyweights have stepped forward to expose just how badly they think the system railroaded Daniel Holtzclaw. You'll hear from two of those leading voices in a moment. But first, let's hear from Daniel. He called in to our railroaded screening in his hometown of Enid, Oklahoma, to thank supporters, especially fellow cops and exonerees Ray Spencer and Brian Franklin.
A lot of people will never understand what it's like to be falsely accused, falsely convicted, and have everything taken from you. I ask all of you to please shake their hands or give them a big hug for me.
Daniel also addressed the local media in attendance, including 2 Oklahoma City TV stations and several Enid outlets.
I thank you guys so much for coming out and taking your time to, report this. But what I encourage you guys to do, please, is to please investigate.
That's exactly what we've been doing. And you won't believe what happened with the secret hearings and evidence we told you about earlier this season. Remember, the Oklahoma Attorney General filed a sealed motion with hidden information that the Court of Criminal Appeals sent back to the trial judge in Daniel's case. Here's surveillance video outside the courtroom of this closed hearing, because we weren't allowed inside. 2 days of secret hearings were held in June 2017 with Judge Timothy Henderson, a court reporter, and representatives from the Oklahoma County DA's office, police department, and city attorney's office. Also in attendance, Campbell Ruddick, OCPD's crime lab supervisor, and the boss of Elaine Taylor, whose scientific misstatements and failures we've been reporting to you since our Daniel in the Den series debuted. But what about Daniel? He is the defendant, after all.
Me, myself, I couldn't even be there, nor my lawyer could be present. How fair is that? How fair is that as far as the judicial process? How fair is that as far as justice?
Through a series of public records requests filed by me and a few other journalists, we learned that crime lab analyst Taylor's personnel records and forensic work were the focus of those secret hearings. We also discovered that the police department had deleted Taylor's account shortly after she retired in February 2017. Poof, all gone. Like Saturday Night Live's church lady used to say, how convenient. The city says it's standard practice, but this is no standard case. Daniel's high-profile criminal appeal is ongoing, and there are nearly a dozen high-dollar civil lawsuits against both Daniel and the city in play. Thanks to mounting pressure in the courts of law and public opinion, the city was forced to magically recover thousands of pages of Elaine Taylor's emails. Though thousands more remain shielded and unknown others may be permanently deleted and unrecoverable. It wouldn't be the first time the OCPD crime lab found itself in the middle of an evidence destruction controversy. During the infamous scandal involving forensic chemist Joyce Gilchrist, crucial trial evidence routinely disappeared. Elaine Taylor worked under Gilchrist. The bombshell news is that all these shenanigans caught the attention of high-profile attorney Kathleen Zellner of Chicago. She represented exoneree Ray Spencer, whom we featured earlier this season in his $9 million civil suit. She's also one of the most successful exoneration lawyers in the country. Zellner freed Ryan Ferguson, wrongfully convicted of murdering a sports editor in Missouri, and also represents Stephen Avery of Netflix's Making a Murderer fame in his post-conviction efforts. In early fall 2017, Zellner fired off a series of public tweets roasting the Oklahoma City Police Department over its bizarre handling of DNA-related emails in Daniel's case. Zellner signaled her intent to get involved in the case, and in late September added Daniel to her Twitter biography's roster of clients. Also speaking out, 6 forensic scientists who analyzed the DNA flaws and failings in the Holtzclaw case. When their motion to file a brief with the Court of Criminal Appeals was rejected, they released their full report publicly. These renowned experts include Peter Gill of Oslo, Jane Goodman-Delahunty in Australia, Moses Shanfield, a former New York lab director, now at George Washington University, George Shiro, a Mississippi-based lab director, Brent Turvey of the Alaska-based Forensic Criminology Institute, and Susanna Ryan, a California-based DNA scientist. At the heart of the report is the prosecution's so-called smoking gun, DNA on the fly of Daniel's uniform pants that matched the DNA profile of a 17-year-old accuser. Daniel stopped her on June 17, 2014. That DNA was just one contributor to the minuscule mixtures of DNA from at least 3 different contributors, including at least one unknown male. That's important because when Daniel pat-searched the 17-year-old female, he also pat-searched another male and female who were with her. Early the next day, he also pulled over linchpin accuser Janie Liggins during an end-of-shift traffic stop. Liggins was the first to accuse Daniel, in her case, oral sodomy. She went public and the case snowballed. But Liggins' rape kit exam was negative, and the crime lab failed to perform basic serology tests to gather evidence. Like, did any of the DNA on Daniel's pants derive from saliva that you might expect after an oral assault? We traveled to Southern California to get answers. There we met with Holtzclaw Forensic Report co-author Susanna Ryan, who broke it all down for us. She showed us step by step some of the crucial errors she believes that OCPD crime lab analyst Elaine Taylor made based on testimony and lab reports.
One of the things that you honed in on was the way that the crime lab analyst tested the pants. So we have a pair of pants here, and we wanted to have you explain what she did right and what she did wrong.
So this is a pair of pants that would be similar to the ones that Daniel was wearing. They were described as navy blue uniform pants. She looked at the pants visually. She used a light, kind of a bright light like this. She did mention that she used a magnifying glass. And what she was doing at that time was looking for any stains, visual stains. This is known saliva on here. That wouldn't always show up. On these pants, it is showing up. But if you don't see any staining, then the next thing that you're going to want to do is look with an alternate light source. So when you put on the orange glasses and you have this alternate light source, what happens is after you shut out the lights, you're actually seeing fluorescence from certain body fluids. Okay? So when the lights go out and you have an alternate light source, certain body fluids will fluoresce. In this case, there's a little bit of fluorescence, a little discoloration here in this area. You would also want to check the inner fly area. So there are additional stains that you're not seeing with the naked eye. In this case, the allegations were oral assault, and so saliva is one of those body fluids that does fluoresce. So in my opinion, that is one of the things that should have been done in this case, a simple alternate light source examination, which would help you visualize not just saliva stains, which she was aware there was an allegation of that, but vaginal fluid also fluoresces.
Why wouldn't she use an alternate light source?
I don't know. Again, it's very common practice. There are some tests that are not as common. A test for vaginal fluid is not as common, but a saliva test is common.
So if the crime lab analyst had used an alternate light source and it had lit up to show saliva, what would the next step be?
Many different fluids will fluoresce. So now you want to try to narrow that field. What is the fluid? In this case, again, the initial allegations were oral intercourse. So a logical step would be a saliva test. What it does is it actually gives you a blue coloration if saliva is present. So this is a neat saliva stain. It's very dark blue. On the other hand, if you had a negative, and holding it up here, you've got the blue in the bottom, but it hasn't reacted with anything, so that's why it's clear.
Gotcha.
However, this test also is pretty sensitive. This is a 1 to 100 saliva stain, and you can still see that kind of faint blue coloration. It's a quick test that can be done. It doesn't waste any sample because the cells are actually retained here in this. There's also other tests that could be done. Later, there were allegations of vaginal intercourse. There are not many labs that do presumptive testing for vaginal cells, but it is possible. And actually, one of the ways we can look at the cells is with a microscope. It does give you an indication or an idea of whether vaginal epithelial cells are present.
And this is important because Galen Giger, the assistant district attorney, in his closing statement, asserted flat out that the DNA found on Daniel's fly of his pants came from the vaginal walls of the 17-year-old accuser, and that it came unequivocally from quote-unquote vaginal fluid. But what did the crime lab analyst do to confirm that?
Nothing. There was no serology testing. There was no testing for saliva. There was no testing for vaginal fluid. So that's scientifically incorrect. It's unsound. You can't make a statement that you have identified a fluid if you have not done any testing for that particular fluid.
So what would you have done?
In my laboratory, I do perform testing for vaginal fluid or vaginal epithelial cells. It's not a confirmatory test, but what you can see on the screen actually is one of the stains that I use called Dane stain. You're seeing where there's kind of an orangish color, that's the vaginal cells, whereas buccal cells, cells from your mouth, would be kind of more of a bluish color. So they are not going to look the same on the screen. Now, another test that I do that's a little bit more common is something called the Lugol's test. It's an iodine test where on this particular sample, we can add just a couple of drops, so it's a very quick test. And the vaginal cells, if present, will stain kind of a chocolate brown color, whereas buccal cells will not have that same coloration. So it actually starts reacting right away. So this is my vaginal cells and the buccal cells. So when I look at that under the microscope, what I'm seeing on the screen is a chocolate brown coloration. And so that color is an indication that you're actually dealing probably most likely with vaginal epithelial cells.
It's very distinctive looking.
Right, and the buccal cells, on the other hand, are just sort of a yellowish color. They don't have that same dark coloration. And so it's, again, not a confirmation, but it does give you an idea. And the same way, a lack of those vaginal epithelial cells would give you an indication that it doesn't appear to be vaginal fluid on the sample. This is a way to help distinguish between cells from the mouth and cells from the vagina.
They are very different. They're very distinct.
Right, visually very distinct. So again, not many labs have this type of testing, but it can be done. It can give you an indication then of what sort of body fluid you're looking at.
It's just another useful data point.
It helps to confirm or negate an accuser's story. If they're saying, listen, I was orally assaulted, here's the pair of pants, he didn't pull his pants down, there is an expectation there's probably going to be some saliva transfer.
Yeah.
So let's do the testing and determine, is saliva present? Not just whose DNA. Because you can always look and see, okay, whose DNA it is, but the testing today is so sensitive that you can pick up just skin cells. And you can get DNA from touch and not just from a body fluid.
And that was such an important point of the report that you and your other co-authors made.
Right.
Because it wasn't accurately or scientifically portrayed by either the crime lab analyst or the prosecutor.
Right. Another issue that I had with the analysis was it was stated that Daniel Holtzclaw was not present in the mixtures, and in fact the report stated something different. It said it was inconclusive. We don't know who all's DNA is present, and that's the accurate statement.
I can't understand why these basic things weren't done in this case. What was the conclusion of the report?
Looking at everything, we did conclude that we didn't feel that he had gotten a fair trial. And it's our opinion that there were problems with the testimony and with the testing, and a new trial should be issued.
That wasn't just Susanna Ryan's finding. 5 other experts did their own independent research and agreed. Let me read you the last line of their report. We believe that Mr. Holtzclaw's conviction should be overturned and he should be given a new trial. Police interviewed Daniel Holtzclaw in person the same day a middle-aged woman accused him of sexual assault. It was during that single 2-hour interview that the detectives diagnosed Daniel as a monster. The words they used to describe him to me were narcissist, psychopath, and evil. But a lot more happened. Let's start by watching a crucial section of the initial interrogation video where the detectives don't take Daniel's underwear. Strange considering he's accused of a sex crime. But they do take his pants and belt. Together, mind you, not separate. That's the first problem. Now, let's back up a little to see what the detective does. Wait, pause it right there. Look at that. See anything wrong? Well, yeah, it doesn't take a trained eye to see a big problem. Detective Rocky Gregory puts his bare hand in the evidence bag. So just how bad of an error is this? Don't take my word for it. We were lucky enough to catch renowned forensic scientist and criminal profiler Dr. Brent E. Turvey as he was between trials. He took a look at this video and analyzed the problems and showed us what should have happened.
Obviously, the first problem we have is that he's using his naked bare hand. If you're collecting evidence from a suspect or from a witness or from anyone involved in a crime, and you're going to move that evidence directly into an evidence bag, you need to wear latex gloves or Mylar gloves to prevent your DNA from transferring onto the object. So what he's done is he's contaminated the inside of the bag with his hand, and he's contaminated both items of evidence with his DNA, his detective's DNA, before putting them into the bag. That's how touch DNA works. It's very sensitive, and we can pick that up. The second thing is you must have only one bag per item of evidence. Now, to properly collect.
Okay, just in the interest of, just in case there could be a copyright strike, I'm going to pause right here for just a second. I want to just clarify a couple of things. First, going back to Susanna Ryan, I just want to make sure that everyone heard that the pants that she was working with at that moment with Michelle Malkin, those were not Daniel's pants. They were similar uniform pants, but they were not Daniel's. I just want to make sure that that was clear, just in case it wasn't. And then I wanted to address, we have new folks here. I believe Lasmaniac was gifted a membership today, if I'm not mistaken. And he filed his appeal in 2017, but it was denied. So I believe they're working on, from what I understand, they're working on Daniel's post-conviction at this point, but his appeal was, not that I don't want to say very quickly denied, but very sternly and arrogantly, in my opinion, denied, even after they had the amicus brief from the scientists. I think it was more here that gifted the membership. So you're welcome for sure. And I thank her as well. So, but yeah, he was denied his appeal. And that's where I believe his case stands at this point. So, sorry, I got distracted. So I just want to make that clear, that those weren't Daniel's pants, and yes, he has done the appeal, but it was denied. So I will get back to playing this video. I hope you guys are finding this interesting. It's going to get even more interesting So hang on.
A pair of pants, you do not wad them up and throw them into a bag. That is completely improper, because what you're looking for is stains, other transfers, and patterns. Let's say maybe you're looking for a hair, maybe you're looking for blood, maybe you're looking for semen. We don't know yet, because we're right now at the collection phase. So when you collect a pair of evidence like this, what you're supposed to do, wearing proper gloves, is you would lay it down on a piece of paper, a piece of white butcher paper, and you would roll the pair of pants up inside that paper like so. The paper would be creating a layer at each roll. So what you'd have is an item of clothing wrapped up inside what looks like a white roll. And then you would take that item, fold it, and put it into the bag. And then immediately you would have evidence tape, and you would fold the bag down like this. You would seal it with evidence tape, sign your name and assign an evidence item number right across it, put the date, the location where it was collected, all that information to keep and maintain a chain of custody. Because now you've secured it in such a fashion that you can test it at a later date and presume that you've not contaminated it. And not only have you prevented immediate contamination, you prevented future contamination from the object, things shaking off of it, patterns transferring around, hairs transferring around. Because when you open this bag at a later date, you're going to not only take out what's in the bag, you're going to look inside the bag and see if anything fell off during transfer. And here's the most important thing. If you're doing a real investigation, you don't know what's important until later on. So you want to make sure to protect the integrity of every piece of evidence you collect.
So all of these errors compounded by having multiple items in the bag as well creates more routes for possible contamination?
It shows an overall attitude of total disregard for the physical evidence. This guy doesn't care about the DNA. He doesn't care about the physical evidence. He's just doing what he thinks he has to do. He's doing this almost theatrical, like he's trying to use this as a mechanism by which he's going to get an inculpatory statement for Daniel to say, yeah, I'm going to take this, I'm going to send it to the lab. No, in reality, if you're really doing it properly, you go through a whole procedure and you have somebody do it who knows what they're doing. This shows somebody who doesn't understand physical evidence, doesn't care about the physical evidence.
Wow, a total and reckless disregard for the evidence. Such a simple thing that could have such a profound effect on the investigation. While DNA was a key issue, there were many other problems. Retired NYPD detective and founder of Forensics for Real Inc., John Palucci, attended our screening of the Railroaded episode and had this to say about the interrogation video as a whole.
When I watched that interview of Daniel, how many people have watched that? Is that a piece of work or what? Work is the four-letter word choice right now.
Because Dr. Turvey is also a criminal profiler, we wanted to ask him about the key players in the investigation, the detectives, attorneys, and accusers. We started by showing him a clip of our interview with the lead detectives on the case. I wanted you to take a look at the answers that Detective Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory, the sex crime detectives who led this, and given that it was Daniel Holtzclaw who was calling in through his CIU unit with the Vruna records and never denied that he had come into contact with any of these women, what they did was take all that information and then reverse engineer by, as you say, going out and seeking out all of these women except for the very first accuser. So this is an exchange that I had with them about the lack of physical evidence at that first stop. What were the results of the SANE test with regard to Jamie Liggins?
There was no DNA in her mouth.
She also said that at one point his hands were on top of the car, and at one point her hands were on the hood?
On the hood, yes.
And what were the results of the DNA tests on those?
They didn't DNA test those, they fingerprinted. You can't do both.
Okay, and what were the results of that?
They didn't get fingerprints.
Why do you think that is?
Because hundreds of people touched the cars, the weather, you gotta keep in mind, Holtzclaw's car was a pigsty. It was absolutely nasty. And a lot of times, like when we go into a house for a burglary, and it's just nasty, you never get results from that, just from the filth.
Wow.
And his car was pretty filthy.
So the fingerprint tests came back negative on the car, and the SANE test came back negative for DNA in her mouth.
Correct.
You still believed her story at that point?
I did.
Detective Gregory, same?
Yes, after Kim kind of relayed everything, because Kim's done hundreds and hundreds of investigations, and she's got a good grasp on whether a victim's telling the truth or not, and just kind of the storyline that she told me.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. I know.
There's layers of problems here.
Yeah, tell us.
Let's start with the first premise. They know the truth, and the truth is that when the victim makes a statement, you must bother to test their statements against the physical evidence record. And if their statements do not lead to physical evidence, that's a problem. What they're doing is explaining it away while still clinging to their original assumption, which is that Holtzclaw must be guilty of these crimes. So first of all, let's talk about the physical evidence transfer. The hood of a car is very good for both identifying visual prints, but also for identifying latent prints and for pulling them. Mm-hmm. The next statement was to explain that was his car was filthy. In fact, she used the word nasty.
It was absolutely nasty.
She immediately, her emotional response goes way up. She knows that she's got a problem because there should have been fingerprints. And two, instead of dealing with that, she starts characterizing the defendant in a very negative way.
Pigsty,
it was so inappropriate. And I can't even begin to tell you the problem that I have with that, because it gives us a real quick peek inside of her mind. She's not talking about the car, she's talking about Daniel.
Yeah.
She's trying to vouch for her lack of evidence by talking about his character. And that is, emotionally, that works so well with people. Mm-hmm. That's what we've been trained to think that way. Oh, his car's nasty, he's guilty. An investigator who thinks that way has a threshold problem with objectivity and really needs to find a new profession. What's really interesting to me is him, the detective. He immediately is not willing to take any responsibility for anything that's happened. He's like, she said it was, and she's smarter than me, and she's been doing this longer.
Yeah.
Her whole thing is, well, I've worked hundreds of cases. Experience is not a shield to scientific scrutiny. Experience is something you demonstrate by doing your due diligence and following your protocols. So when someone uses their experience to explain why they didn't do their job, that to me is an oxymoron. I would want to go and look at every single case she's worked at to see whether or not she did this based on a feeling.
She's acting as an advocate?
She's acting as an advocate for the victim instead of an advocate for the truth, to find the truth. That's the job, to uphold the Constitution, which applies to everybody in the case, not just one person that she likes or dislikes or finds nasty. Mm-hmm. That's not what you do. The science has proven over and over again that detectives cannot tell. It's no better than a coin toss, whether you can tell whether someone's lying to me. That's why we bother to employ people at a crime lab. That's why we bother to test evidence, because people do lie and they get ground balls by you all the time because you're not paying attention, because you think you're a super cop. You think you're a super lie detector.
Yeah.
You're not. It's not how it works.
This was an interesting phenomenon because you had the procurement of the 13 accusers, and
That's a great word for it.
There were 8 out of the 13 on whose charges Daniel was found guilty, and it was a mishmash of almost random or splitting the baby is how both the detectives and government officials have put their description of the verdict.
They split the baby on him.
They split the baby. Is that justice?
Well, that's how they perceived.
That's
You
how it
had
works.
5 of the accusers on whose charges Daniel was completely cleared of.
Yes.
There just seemed to be a randomness about
Yes.
it. There was one, Shardarian Hill, who was caught at the end of her interview with Rocky Gregory saying, is this good evidence? She sort of stretched her arms out as if it was all in a day's work and said, the phrase was, quote,
even if he didn't even rape nobody, nothing, he's been in contact with people that he was arrested.
because he had contacted these women, somehow he deserved to face some sort of legal consequences for that.
And that's advocacy one way or the other. You essentially assume the premise in order to prove the argument. And that's, again, a logical flaw. It's what happens when you have detectives who are not properly educated. You have people who are functionally, logically illiterate, who are advocates running cases instead of people who have proper education and proper scientific and investigative protocol.
As the case attracted national media attention, there were many opportunists who came forward, and
We
also
call them false reporters, but yes.
false reporters that,
Right.
that piled on. So I wanted to ask you about Shawneese Barksdale. This is a picture of her. She is one of the many women
and one man, by the way, who came forward in the course of all of the media frenzy to claim that they had also been sexually molested or assaulted by Daniel Holtzclaw. And I want you to take a look at some of the video of her interview.
We don't want this guy out here hurting our own citizens. There's others out there that's real. If I didn't have to work on this case, okay, and try to track down real victims, because I've had to go to a lot of women that stuff happened with, okay, they didn't come forward. I've had to go find them, okay. If I didn't have that real thing to do right now, I probably would arrest you.
I am astonished, not only that she was not arrested on the site, but that he acknowledges that he should have arrested her and didn't. When you have somebody who's a false reporter and they're willing to do this, very often false reporting is associated with other incidents. They're not just doing it one time. So if you arrest one time, you're preventing not one false reporter, you're preventing the 20 more that are going to come later on in their life. Because they're going to realize, once they realize it works and there's no consequences, they're going to keep doing it. She should have been arrested. And he acknowledges that in the interview. And that fact is, what it tells you is how fast and loose they're playing with the law. But more importantly, it gave you an insight into his thinking. If I just had good evidence, some people making good statements, I could just start I could arrest this guy. He's looking for that golden ticket and he couldn't find it.
And the only difference between women that they determined were lying and women who they determined were telling the truth was it needed to match up with the GPS and AVL information. So the same way that they applied that to the presence of DNA, they applied it to, well, if the GPS showed that Daniel was in a certain place, ergo, a sexual assault must have occurred.
It's completely improper, but it goes right back to basic interview interrogation techniques. He's not thinking like a detective, he's not thinking like a truth seeker, he's not thinking like he cares about what actually happened. And they're using GPS data in that same fashion. With this, therefore, because of this. That's not how it works, and that does not create good truth seeking.
It's terrifying.
No, but it's common. It's the way that law enforcement investigates cases. They trace statements instead of evidence. They don't follow the evidence. They don't let the evidence tell them what happened. They decide what happened, and then they try to cherry pick the evidence to fit their narrative.
7 months after Shawneese Barksdale admitted lying to police about Daniel to help the case, she was finally charged with felony false reporting of a crime. But it was dropped to a misdemeanor. In May 2016, she pleaded guilty and got off with a short probation and a tiny fine. She wasn't the only known liar.
From what I understand, there were an additional 7 whose allegations didn't hold any water with you all.
Some people thought of money or just wanted attention or however. I interviewed one male.
One male who said that Daniel Holtzclaw. And what was the outcome of that?
He admitted he lied.
Yeah. So there are plenty of reasons to lie, including
Get out of trouble.
And money, as you said, was a big factor for people. They wanted to cash in.
After they saw it on the TV, they were like, ooh, I can get in on this.
And this kind of case and these kind of allegations are sort of a magnet for people who are looking to cash in.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Despite acknowledging that at least 7 people, including one male, had lied in order to join the Holtzclaw publicity bandwagon and high-dollar civil lawsuits, police and prosecutors failed to charge anyone else but Barksdale with making false allegations. That's alarming. False narratives aren't harmless fibs. They can cost innocent people their freedom, even their lives. This is a copy of Dr. Brent Turvey's newest textbook, False Allegations: Investigative and Forensic Issues in Fraudulent Reports of Crime. As Dr. Turvey teaches students and true law enforcement professionals, it is a fact of life and the criminal justice system that people lie. Moreover, quote, too many investigators succumb to personal and institutional bias, and they perpetuate deceit. Lying about crimes is a crime, and enabling lies is as wrong as telling them, especially when those lies are told under oath and in front of a jury. In Daniel's case, the lead prosecutor got away with apparently telling falsehoods about the DNA evidence.
The crime lab analyst got away with failures to do basic serology tests and to disclose vital information about the DNA mixtures. These forensic falsehoods drove a biased investigation by detectives who manufactured a profile of Daniel's victims based on personal beliefs and gut instincts. They concluded Daniel was guilty before they had gathered all the facts. They sought out accusers, casting a wide dragnet involving more than 40 women, proactively informed many that they were seeking out sexual assault victims to get a bad guy off the streets. They dismissed basic factual discrepancies, illogical claims, repeated denials, and pleas by at least one woman to be left alone.
No, I want to, please. I just want to leave it alone.
They acted as advocates instead of investigators, routinely excusing accusers' lapses of memory, explaining away repeated failures to find corroborating forensic evidence, and downplaying their troubled histories, including crimes of deceit. With the exception of Janie Liggins, publicity hound and lead civil rights lawsuit plaintiff, it was Daniel who placed himself at the scene by calling in and running the accuser's data through his patrol work. He readily acknowledged that every encounter with the accusers occurred, not the work of a serial predator trying to hide his actions. Sexual allegation falsehoods were inserted into a true framework. Misleading police reports omitted exculpatory information that didn't fit the detectives' predetermined outcome. Prosecutors depended on those incomplete and biased reports to shape their narratives. These non-credible stories were then all chained together and bolstered by falsely portrayed DNA evidence that greatly swayed the jury. Scientist Erica Fuchs explains the damage wrought by these misleading statements.
The government should not be allowed to convict people by stating lies, and that's happened in Daniel's case. It's not a bad thing to be wrong, but what is bad is when you cover it up and you don't acknowledge it.
Daniel's growing team of supporters is ensuring that the cover-up fails and sunlight prevails. More independent observers and experts are asking, as we first did on this billboard that sparked so much controversy, what if he didn't do it? And defense attorney Kathleen Zellner is determined to rewrite the ending for innocent defendants, and that list now includes Daniel. Another expert now speaking publicly is Ken Tisdale, a former law enforcement officer whose company LCG handles high-tech and complex investigative matters. He is one of many donating valuable time to clear Daniel's name. He had strong words for those involved in what he believes to be a botched, biased investigation.
We're coming after Oklahoma City, and we're coming after Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory. The work that they did was horrible at best. We will continue to go after you, and it will be very embarrassing for Oklahoma City and all these other parties for the travesty that they've inflicted upon Daniel and his family.
We'll continue to uncover the buried facts and truths as Daniel's defenders inside and outside the courtroom fight for his freedom.
Okay, I'm having a struggle here trying to figure out which button to push. So as far, okay, this was all recorded many years ago. So as far as Ken Tisdale, I have no idea where he stands with, his declaration that he made there at the end. I haven't heard, but, hopefully, listen, I think Cherie and I and Rick as well have kind of told you guys about how far back and how deep the corruption is in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma County, and, in some places of Oklahoma, just Oklahoma in general. But those are the places that we focus on. Hi, Bruce. Yeah, it's great to see you. And Lasmatic and Sharon Sunshine, thank you guys for all of your contributions and all your comments and things in the chat. Liam, as always, of course, we love your comments and your humor that you can always very quick-wittedly add to just about any context. So thank you. But anyway, and I say again, we don't know, I'm sure there are other states and cities and counties that are just as bad or worse, but because we spend so much time researching not only Daniel's case, but putting time into Richard Glossop's case and other cases actually out of Oklahoma. Rodney, or not Rodney Reed, he's in Texas. Julius Jones from Oklahoma. Based on what research I did do in the past regarding his case, at the very least, I believe Julius Jones needs a new trial. He was on death row, but was Governor Stitt after a lot of really heavy advocacy for Julius Jones. He did commute Julius Jones's sentence from death row to life without, if I'm not mistaken. So, but there's still one more part that I want you guys to see. I know you guys are all probably ready to go. But this is, I want you to see this part as well. I just have to
Gators
find the
went
right...
on a hunt for anyone in Daniel's past
Not
who
that.
would.
Not that. I just wanted to find this one last scientist that, scientist who also, well, he didn't really, I don't really think he spoke on Daniel's case necessarily, but he did. I don't know. I feel like I want to play this part for you, but I won't. I'll pass it. But he did help he did do an experiment with Michelle Malkin that, I mean, maybe, most might already know how this works, but just I just want to play it for you. But I want to play this part first because this is going to be coming up here when we get back to the series that Kim Davis said, and then the part about the other scientists is I think pretty much right after this. So I'm going to play this part first.
Davis that he stopped her, brought her home, and vaginally raped her. But the story, like so many of the others, raised bright red flags. Brian Bates points out that the 17-year-old's mom filed a missing persons report, then an assault and battery report against her daughter. Then there was this strange remark.
What did your daughter tell you? She said, I met this really hot cop. He told me I had a couple warrants, but he said, don't worry about it. Give me his number and we're going to go out on dates.
Who describes their rapist as the hot cop and we're going to go out on dates and I'm just really excited about it? It doesn't happen.
And then another twist. A third female claimed she had been sexually assaulted on the same day as the 17-year-old and Janie Liggins. Yet only the DNA of the teen, the first in the timeline, was found on Daniel's uniform. So how did it get there? His defenders have a theory that detectives spurned.
I'm not going to try to, sugarcoat that or lessen that. That doesn't look very good. Then supposedly, after the 17-year-old, there are two adult females who are also sexually assaulted. Their DNA doesn't appear anywhere on the fly of the pants. And I say the fly of the pants because something that's important, they only searched the fly of the pants. They looked nowhere else. And people would say, why would they need to look anywhere else? Because one of the things you want to eliminate is you want to eliminate what's called touch DNA or transfer DNA.
Negative charge. That's what phosphate groups are all
Dr. Dan
about.
Crane, professor of biological sciences at Wright State University, is a leading expert on DNA. He is president of Forensic Bioinformatics, which reviews test results from criminal trials all over the world. He and his company have been involved in high-profile cases, like the Casey Anthony trial in Florida, the sniper case in Washington, D.C., and the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski.
The presence of a DNA profile doesn't tell us anything about the time frame or the circumstances under which that DNA came to be on the evidence sample.
And it's easier than you might think for one of these tiny particles to transfer.
I have two different kinds of sweetener here. I got sugar and an artificial sweetener. And I think what we can do is just show how the transfer could take place. Let me hand you the actual sugar, and I've got here a sweetener. If we just rip them open, right, I'm going to put some of my sweetener on my hand. full
I'll do the
gram
same.
with a sweetener. So I got a pretty sweet hand right now, right?
Mine's all
Now-
naturally sweet.
Yeah, so the thing is that it's not going to be at all surprising if at this point we shake hands, right? And we come away, and I got a lot of sugar on my hand, right?
here.
And you got a lot of sugar on your hand, right? If we were now to take our hands and pick something up, like a water bottle, for instance, would you be surprised if when I put the water bottle down, we look and we find some sugar grains on that, right? I think that's entirely reasonable.
That's frightening. My DNA, the sugar, is on that water bottle, even though I didn't touch it. It transferred when we shook hands. And it gets even scarier. What if we never even touched?
If I grabbed a purse the way that Daniel did when he was rifling through his 17-year-old accusers, and I pick up an object, and if I handed it back to you,
Sure.
what would be on it?
Interestingly, all that I see is sugar. I don't see any of the artificial sweetener, but I don't think it's at all remarkable that we would find some of that sugar on this article. And if I were to handle the article now, what we may find is the sugar's gone and it's on my hand. None of the artificial sweetener is on my hand that I can see, but I've got some sugar on my hand, and if I were to rub my shirt, the sugar's gone. It's on my shirt. If we did a DNA test, we might find only your DNA and none of mine from that transfer that we've just done.
And if you had gone to the bathroom, is it possible that some of that sugar could have transferred to the fly of your pants?
Well, of course, right? There's nothing magical about the fly of somebody's pants compared to any other part of their clothing.
There's another piece of the DNA puzzle that Daniel's appellate team believes is crucial, right here in the crime lab analysis. It appears as if there are at least 3 contributors to the sample that ID'd the teen, including an unknown male's DNA.
Both that unknown male's DNA as well as the 17-year-old's was a result of transfer DNA. Does that sound reasonable?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the sky is literally the limit in terms of coming up with hypotheses about how those other people's DNA could have come to be associated with that evidence sample.
But when we asked police about it, they didn't buy it.
Is it possible that there's an innocuous and completely non-nefarious reason that the 17-year-old's DNA was on his pants?
On the inside of his pants? No.
He couldn't have gone to the bathroom, put his hands down there.
No.
Were the pockets of the pants tested?
No.
Why not?
Why?
Is it possible that the transfer of DNA cells from the 17-year-old to Daniel Holtzclaw came from random transfer or touch transfer?
I have not worked one sexual assault case and had transfer DNA.
Is it possible?
Anything's possible. I would never say it's not possible.
Do you think it should be standard protocol to test, other areas to rule out that possibility?
Well, if we would have tested the knee of his pants, I can't say that came from a sexual assault. It's not. Does that make sense? I mean, you kind of have to use a little common sense here.
But Dr. Crane suggests common sense would mean actually testing another spot as a control.
If you think about that in the context of this case, saying that the 17-year-old's DNA was found on Officer Holtzclaw's pants, and not just his pants, but on the fly of his pants, at a first pass, this doesn't sound very good, right?
Right.
But maybe your opinion would be different if you were also told that in addition to finding that individual's DNA on the fly of his pants, it was also found on the knee or on the cuff or in the pocket or some other part of the pants that's a little bit less titillating, perhaps.
But remember, police didn't do that, nor did they fluoresce the pants or collect and test his other uniforms, including his underwear left in his laundry. And this is exactly why Daniel's defense team felt they had a strong case.
I've never seen quote unquote Barney Fife policing like I saw when this case was handed over to Detective Gregory. This was a man who took his list and went out and told people, I think you're a victim. Give me the details of it. This is a man who didn't find it was necessary to take a suspected serial rapist's underwear to be tested. They didn't look for semen, they didn't look for vaginal secretions, they didn't look for saliva, they didn't look for blood. They didn't care how that DNA got there. DNA's there, that's all we need. DNA is a very scary thing. People need to understand it's not like television. DNA has progressed immensely over the last decade. You can have a minute amount of DNA and can try to construct an entire story from it that's false.
Dr. Crane also expressed surprise at the investigative admissions.
I can't imagine that they would not have wanted to know
Yeah.
why they didn't choose to test it.
Yeah.
Is a different question, and it's a curious question. I don't know that I can't give you a good answer to it. You might recall an allegation of sexual impropriety on the part of President Bill Clinton with Monica Lewinsky. What that all hung upon was a semen stain that was found on one of Monica Lewinsky's dresses, even after that dress had been dry cleaned.
Obviously, it's not semen in this case, but what kind of skin cell DNA is it? In the prosecutor's closing statement to the jury, he boldly claimed, quote, DNA from the walls of her vagina were transferred in vaginal fluids onto the outside and the inside, not of his pockets, not of his cuff, not where he sits, but of the exact location she says his penis came in contact.
Is there a test for determining whether vaginal fluid was involved?
There's no widely used test in courts around the country for vaginal fluid.
So could one conclude from the DNA sample that was associated with the 17-year-old that it definitively came from vaginal fluid?
Absolutely not. Certainly not in my experience. I've never seen a test that's been presented in court where that assertion has been made.
So the jury was left with a misleading impression and convicted Daniel of raping the 17-year-old who called him a, quote, hot cop. 50 years in prison for those charges alone. Jurors found Daniel guilty of exactly half of the 36 charges piled up against him.
They didn't take all 13 and just clump them together. They studied each case individually. And some of them they did. They split the baby on them.
They split the baby. Is that justice?
Well, that's how they perceived it.
Splitting the difference when you're talking about the fate of a man's life, police officer or no, doesn't really seem to be how the justice system is supposed to work.
The defendant is guilty of the crime of rape in the first degree.
On his 29th
Okay, I'm not going to play that part. It breaks my heart, so I'm not going to play the rest of that. I just really wanted you all to see the Dan Crane's experiment with the sugar and the sweetener, and for those who may not know or understand, it's really just as simple as what he experimented with to transfer DNA. And, knowing that Daniel had skin-to-skin contact with the 17-year-old, whose name is Dara Gardner. He had put handcuffs on her, so he had touched her skin with his skin, and then, as Michelle Malkin indicated, that he went through her purse or her bag, whatever it was she was carrying, and so he likely did touch, personal articles that she has handled on the regular, and it's not as unthinkable or unrealistic as particularly Galen Gigger would would tell you. I don't know if I have handy his. I don't know if I can play it. I can try his. What he claims, his nasty, snarky comments that he makes about Daniel's. What is it? What does he call them? Daniel's supporters or something to that effect. I'll see if I have it, and if I mean, I have it. I just don't know if I can get it to play. I had to. I need to convert it. Not well. I need to. Never mind. I know what I need to do, but I haven't done it, so I don't know if I'll be able to share it. Okay, I think it's this one. Let me see if I can get it to come up and play for you guys. I'll have to do a screen share, which is fine. Because this is the mentality. I hope I can get it to play. This is the mentality that Giger had and the claims that he literally made. I think I am sharing a tab or a screen. Let me just check all of my areas to make sure it's showing the way I want it to. Okay, I got to get rid of this one. And add this one. I don't know if it's going to let me. Okay, okay, hopefully this will work. Let me check over here and make sure it's showing the same way. Okay, I think you should be able to see this orange screen on your YouTube. So let me, what is happening? All my tabs are really frustrating me right now. Doggone it. Let me get everything else removed. Because I really want you guys to see this. Oh gosh. Okay, give me one more try just really quick to see. Make sure I can make it show. Because I think you'll find this interesting. Okay, Cherie,
Yes, ma'am.
can we see that on?
I can see, I saw the
orange screen. Okay.
Now I'm seeing black.
Yeah, I just need to start it. I'm switching between two windows, if that makes sense. Let's see if this will work. It's not very long. It's less than 2 minutes. Okay, I don't think it's going to play unless I convert it, or something. Anyway, I'll get it into I'll get it to where I can share it with you guys, and so you can see it. It's basically Galen Giger just being his arrogant self, in my opinion. I feel like he's very arrogant, and talking about, it's a news clip. It's just a news clip. And he said this to one of the local news stations at the time. And I can't even remember which one it was, but uh, he he made. I wonder if I do it this way, if that'll work. Let me try it this way. I'm just such a. I can't ever just give up. I gotta always be obnoxious about things to myself. Let me see if it'll play this way.
It's not obnoxious, it's called persistence.
Persistence. Yes, thank you, thank you. It's yeah. It's like I just can't give up on some things. It's just like um. Okay, let's see if this will work. Especially if I feel like it's something that is pretty important or relevant. Okay, can is that showing up now? Oh, probably not because I'm not in StreamYard. Okay, can you guys see that now? The orange screen. Um,
I can.
you can. Okay. Okay. Hopefully this is going to work and you guys can hear this. Let me hit there and play this for you.
No sound yet.
Did you say there was no sound? Okay, dang it. Um, I'm real. Talk about not techno. Somebody not being techno. Um, grr, that's frustrating. I don't know why. I'll try it again. Just one time. I won't go through it again, or I won't keep going through it. But I just want to. Okay, I'm having issues here with something else now. Sorry. Oh hell. Um, so when I try to share it, I'm having it. I'm also share tab audio, so I'm doing that. But you guys can't hear it. Can you still not hear it?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm done. I'm done. I'll get it downloaded and converted, and I'll show it to you another time. Anyway, yeah, I have it all turned up more here, but I think I just need to get it converted. So, and it's not a big deal. I should have already done it. I just haven't. Anyway, uh, so I believe I have it in Discord. I might not, but if it's not in Discord, I'll get it converted and get it to Discord, and you guys can watch it in there if you'd like to. Anyway, yes, definitely next time we're here. But um, it's just a minute and 15-second clip of Kim Davis, some, but to I don't know, highlight or expose or show or prove or what, give you a different thought or whatever you want to call it about what I think is a great deal of arrogance from uh, Galen Gigger in this news clip that he really, um, I mean, if you've just watched the last 2 hours or so of Michelle Malkin's information and presentations, and the scientists with their information and presentations, you just have to think, what is he talking about? Because it's pretty blatant how how he says what he does about the DNA, and how he misrepresents Daniel's supporters for believing that the DNA was not transferred the way he says. Um, I personally think shows a lot of arrogance. So anyway, I had a couple of things I wanted to. So I wanted to, just a couple of things I wanted to talk about real quick. Liam said, "Wait, she just admitted that tests were done in order to get a result, not to actually find the truth." Yeah, that's pretty. You're right on. I think you're spot on with that, um, Liam, because when you listen to this entire interview between that Michelle Malkin does with um, Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory, you will hear all kinds of really, what I think are some crazy, illogical statements and comments from both of these people. Mostly Kim Davis, but occasionally Rocky Gregory will get his testicles out of her purse and speak up a little bit. Yeah, I know that was crude. I'm sorry. But anyway, no less crude than this, I don't think. From Bruce Wayne, he makes a very logical point. Or talking about how the transfer from Daniel's hands to the inside of his pants could have occurred. How about I sat back down in my squad car and I pinched my nut and had to reach down to adjust myself? Ask any man about it. Yeah, I say this all the time. I know it's, just, more of the same, but I raised 5 boys. I know, and I was married twice. Um, I know how things like that are. You know, I have grandsons that, and I don't even think, I know that I see my, with unintended anything, just the natural movements of men.
If, if he had just looked through a lady's purse prior to doing that, he'd be in big trouble with Kim.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like, I think somebody else said earlier on in the chat something about, my car's dirty, I guess I'm going to prison now. So exactly, the way they make some of their statements just make you're like, wait, what? How? This is not normal or natural behaviors to twist some of these things the way they've been twisted. So anyway, um, thank you, Last Maniac. It was appropriately crude. Thank you. I'm just, yeah, I need to do better and not be as crude, but there's always the possibility and the likelihood that somebody in Daniel's family may be watching, and I need to not, I need to try not to offend them, because they're the ones who are still suffering, and I don't want to add any more to that. So Lasmaniac says, we make 50 such adjustments a day. Yeah, I'm sure you do. I wouldn't know. But okay. So anyway, that was those were some things that I wanted to share with you today, even though it's way out of context from from where, we're going to start the series of the trial. But hopefully, especially for those who know nothing about Daniel's case, and this isn't so that you believe what I believe or that you believe what Cherie believes, but those are just nuggets that we wanted to show you to make you, if nothing else, want to do your own research and get information about this case besides just what mainstream media told for years about about Daniel's case. And not much of it was really true at all. If I go back and look at different Brian Bates has a YouTube channel. It's called Holtzclaw Trial. He also has one that's, I think, called Bates Investigates or something like that. He's got two different YouTube channels, plus his Bates Investigates podcast. And I've told you guys all before that Brian Bates is really the best source of accurate information on Daniel's case. And of course, what Michelle Malkin has done. She also has several videos on her YouTube channel. So, Liam, this is what I mean, Liam. This is just one reason why we love you. 50? Pfft, amateur. Oh my gosh, we love you. You guys are awesome. I love your comments. So anyway, hopefully this part about the DNA, I go on and on and on about the ABL stuff all the time, but this part about the DNA hopefully has sparked your curiosity to want to learn more about this case and its corruption and what I believe is fully corrupt and fully a full wrongful conviction. Sharon Sunshine says, I knew nothing about the case. I'm glad I popped in on your live stream. We're glad you did too, Sharon. And hopefully you'll want to, to learn more and get more curious about it. Yes, Dr. Silkman's presentation that he did when he went over the DNA evidence in Daniel's case and presented it several years ago on the channel. So, and which does it shows a lot of evidence in his experience and knowledge, which is, right up there with the scientists that we showed you today. So it's definitely a great source of information. But Bruce Wayne says, yes, Sharon, this is the first I heard of this case, and so far not impressed with the justice system there at all. Yeah, we're not either at all. So, and Cherie says that she recommends watching Daniel in the Den for a good overview. And I played not quite half, but I did play, a good introduction to Daniel in the Den for you. And then I kind of paused where I wanted to leave you, what's it called? A cliffhanger. I wanted to kind of leave you at a cliffhanger spot. For those of you who are unfamiliar. So definitely check out Daniel in the Den. It says parts 1 and 2. It was a 2-part series, but both of them play in that one video. So you can watch it there. And then there's also, and I think this might be in the description. I've got a lot of links in the description. But I'm pretty sure Daniel in the Den. And then hopefully I also put in the link for the interview that Kim Malkin did with the 2 detectives. It's about 2 hours long, but it's really, you guys got some of the highlights, I guess. I wouldn't even call those the highlights, but definitely so much more than what you saw here today that we showed. The entire interview is astounding to me. And as Liam has linked here, the analysis that Dr. Silkman did of the DNA, also a great presentation. And then the Brian Bates podcast You can watch that on Spotify, or I don't know. This is going to sound like I'm copying, but I pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts regularly, you can. I listen to it on Podbean, um, but anyway, you can get it anywhere and listen to Brian Bates. Um, First season, he calls it of the case of Daniel's case. Tons of information. Again, if you're new and don't know and have never heard this, Brian Bates was the investigator for Daniel's defense team. So he has a ton of deep dive information, and he shares it very clearly with really good diagrams in the police, in various police reports. And Brian Bates is the shit, honestly, when it comes to talking, giving information about Daniel's case. So I definitely recommend that. Um, and so um, I'll just make this really quick as well. Sharon says, neither am I, Bruce. It's scary to know that could happen to any of us. Absolutely. So easily. I mean, it happened to Daniel it began to happen to Daniel in less than 24 hours of that first initial stop with Jamie Liggins. So it takes very, very little. I mean, it's with Daniel being a cop at the time, it's weird to say, but us who aren't involved with law enforcement or that type of field, it's why we should never talk to cops. You just, you have to exercise your rights and, be very careful about, what you're saying, if anything, when you become involved with law enforcement. Um, there, and it's tough because I have so much respect for what Daniel was doing as a police officer. At the same time, I have to say, we can't, we know that cops aren't really trying to help you when they say, I'm here to help you. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. So anyway, yeah, don't speak, get a lawyer. Exactly. That Fifth Amendment is there for a reason. The Fourth Amendment is, I don't know which is most important, probably the Fifth Amendment first, but certainly you want to protect your Fourth Amendment right as well. But that's not what this is about. So that's just going off on a tangent about, you know, constitutional rights that I don't need to do to you guys. Anyway, so hopefully some new folks are intrigued about the case. If you're not, if you haven't jumped into my Discord, the Discord that we have, give that a try. And, we can, Rick, who is ill, like I mentioned, is working on organizing all the documents that are there so that they're easier to understand or find. I think I don't know anything about Discord. That's why Rick has, agreed to help get that more organized and look better, but things easier to find things. So get over there, and even if you can't find something, please tag me, or I don't recall. Rick isn't available today, but in the future you can look for Rick to help you as well. So, Cherie, do you have anything you'd want to add, or any final comments before we wrap it up today?
No, it was a good idea to watch that. What you showed, it was, even though I've seen it several times, it was interesting and always learned something new.
I thank you so much, Bruce, for becoming a member. We really, really, really appreciate the support, and look forward to having you, in future streams. So thank you. Yeah, it is what Cherie said. Every time we every time I watch it, I learn something new, or I catch something new that I hadn't heard before. So we're going to let it go at this. We will be doing another stream in the near future. Hopefully next Sunday. I plan on next Sunday. I'm trying to stay on Sunday afternoons the best I can. So thank you guys for being here. All of your comments and questions in the chat were amazing and very helpful for us. To go back and revisit things that we may have forgotten, to make sure we're getting you the best information that we can. So having said that, hopefully we'll see you guys all again next time. Until then, peace out.